Good afternoon and welcome to Sunflowers Podcast. My name is Jane Anderson. We have created this podcast to connect with ladies who have taken the decision to move to another country or start a new life. And often these stories go untold. And we just thought it would be good to share some of these stories and let people know the reality of moving to a new country and starting again. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Jo Halligan, and she is a wonderful person, I have to say. She is a personal friend of mine. She's an artist, a mother, a grandmother, a wife, lots of different hats she has worn, and she's going to meet with us today, and we're going to ask her lots of questions that will help us introduce you to her, and we will walk you through her journey of moving here. Welcome to Sunflowers Podcast.
Thank you, Jane.
Can you just give us a quick introduction of who you are?
Yeah, I am your friend.
Thank you.
My name is Joanne Halligan, and I'm here with my husband, James Halligan.
Brilliant. So we're going to talk today about your story of how you got here, what it's been like, what your expectations were, reality, emotionally wise, all the different things. It's like finding your feet, losing your feet, and then having to find yourself again as you've worked through the journey of here. So whose kind of dream was it to come? How did you, or who were you before you got here?
So I was a hairdresser, working many hours. I was mobile as well as working in a salon. And so life is very different now.
Yeah. Yeah. And family-wise, did you have a
family? Big family, 3 girls, grown-up girls with children, and an unofficial foster daughter from Thailand. One of my daughter's best friends at school. So, yeah.
Yeah. Grandchildren?
Grandchildren, 11.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a large family, and were you very active
An
in the family?
extended family, yeah. Yeah, I've still got my mother, thankfully, and I have many nieces, nephews, and cousins. Yeah,
Okay, so
we're a big family.
and very established in the area.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
your husband?
In Surrey,
Yeah.
but they've expanded to other areas of the country.
Brilliant. So who made the choice? Was it a joint decision? Did you know France before
Well,
you came?
finally, it was a joint decision, but initially, we had vacations in France a few times over the years, and when the children were young, we'd go down to the south. About 10 years ago, we went west, and the year after that, on our honeymoon, we went east, down south, and then come up through the Midlands and ended up in the north. And yeah, and Jim had always said that if he wasn't to settle in Ireland in his later years, he would actually quite like to settle in France.
Okay. So Jim's Irish, yeah.
Yeah, Jim's Irish. He could relate to the cultural similarities, especially rurally. Yeah.
So with Jim being Irish, and you had obviously an Irish passport, my husband's the same, so we can relate a lot when it comes to that. Was our way of coming in, you and I, rather than having to go for visas and things.
Yeah.
So that obviously made it a lot easier for us.
Yeah.
We'll get to that part.
Okay, yeah.
Definitely. So how did you find this area? How did this area become important?
This area became important because in the last 4 or 5 years, about 5 years ago, just less, we had a couple of friends that moved here and invited us out for a holiday, of which I think after about a year we accepted. and we enjoyed the stay. And we came back, I think, shortly afterwards. I can't remember. It's all a bit of a mess with me.
Sorry.
But we came out again soon afterwards. And at the end of the second holiday, we viewed a property.
Okay.
And then again, we came out and viewed many other properties. I think in all of them must have been about 35 properties we viewed.
Wow.
And kind of had our stamp on one property that needed an awful lot of renovation. And extremely glad that fell through eventually. It kind of fell through. We made the choice in the final hours, I think. More or less.
Literally down to the right,
more or less. Another property came up without physically viewing it. Our friends viewed it for us. We said, yep, it had only been on the market for 2 or 3 weeks.
So you hadn't actually physically seen it?
No.
And put an offer
Only
in?
on a video.
Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And was part of the draw for around this area, because prices are in the centre of France where we are, and you get more for your money than you would in the UK, definitely. Without.
I think for Jim to be rid of a mortgage, and have money in the bank, clearly that's an important thing. And everything kind of seemed to be veering us this way. Everything happened very quickly. There weren't many hiccups. And so you almost feel like it's meant to be.
Yeah. Brilliant. So you've done the hard bit, you've bought the property. We know the paperwork during buying a property can be challenging at times. Your expectations of coming out here, because I know certainly we were sitting on the ferry and I had this dream in my head of how it was going to be when we got here. How did the expectations of what you thought compare to reality?
I think because we've been out here on holiday before, I think the expectations were really quite...
Do you find it quite realistic?
Yeah.
So you're here, you've arrived, and obviously the language, I wasn't particularly fluent. I'm a way off being fluent. How did you find the language?
Okay, it's a challenge. You start with Duolingo. Unfortunately, with having a new property and lots of work needed, you kind of tend to... the focus isn't always there. So that's been challenging for me. But I have been attending regular classes, sessions. It's slow, but thankfully we have good French friends, and they've been a massive help. The neighbours are amazing, and just that little bit of input really helps.
And did you reach out to your neighbours, or did you feel that they came?
Actually, our neighbours were very friendly and welcomed us.
Brilliant.
And we've had a good rapport with them since.
So do you feel that it's really our responsibility coming here to
integrate? Yeah, absolutely. And I think the important thing is to have the respect for that. Because that goes a long way with French. I've noticed that.
And I think especially in the rural areas, I think,
the more they want to help you.
Yeah. And if you attended, I know, like over here they call the community centre a Salle de Fête. Have you attended? Because there's always things on there, and have you found it's a good way of meeting?
Well, we have done a couple. The local village, I've been fortunate enough to connect with a guy that supported us, a French guy, local to Trabzon, that supported a group of us in an art form to have 2 exhibitions in 2 years.
Wow.
And that has been massively helpful for me personally, because I know my face is more familiar and people will smile, when they see me locally, and that has been quite humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, again, and I think, I mean, you're a very talented artist, I can vouch for that. But
Bless you.
yeah, I think that's, it's good that if you can find something that you can relate to with
Yeah.
the French, then it really, really helps,
Oh,
definitely.
exactly. And I think, as I say, the more you integrate with them, the more they will accept you. You know,
Yeah.
you're not so much of an alien.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think it's important.
Yeah. And it's a big step. I mean, we're very similar ages,
Yeah.
to suddenly leave that core of who you were and that person there, and then come here.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm just going to ask you about supermarkets. One of my first things was going to supermarkets, and suddenly I realised where you knew every aisle and where everything was in the
Absolutely.
UK.
That was a challenge. Yeah.
Obviously, everything's written in French. It's not a surprise,
Mm.
but it becomes a big challenge when you go to get the
Yeah.
weekly shop.
I think more so, I had the time to search, to look, to translate, translation.
Yeah.
It was more the nervousness of at the counter,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was a stupid little things that I would get the wrong way round.
So
through
language-wise, was
nerves.
you? Yeah.
And I would say bonjour, monsieur, when I was talking to a woman.
Yeah. Or I would
And
say
vice
bonjour when I
versa.
would say goodbye.
Knowing that I'd made that mistake, but it was
Because
nice.
you're,
And
well,
it's
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 number
your
5
mind
for me.
working in a different way.
I couldn't get the name. I couldn't get the word 5 out, so I would have to stand there talking to somebody,
Oh yeah.
going, "Oh, I can't." Thank, right, okay. Every single time, I found that really, really difficult.
Yeah.
Things like going to the deli counter. I'm going to super you. That took me 2 years to walk up and ask for
Yeah,
cold meat.
that's a brave thing. Yeah, you have to be brave.
And I used to go at
to
lunchtime. I
do
still
that.
do, when, as we know, because this is one of the cultural shocks when you get here, is that France seems to grind to a halt between 12 and 2.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was
yeah,
big.
that was a big shocker for me.
But actually, really nice.
I love it now.
Because that takes me back to 70s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, it wasn't quite the same, but it's really quite similar in lots of ways.
Yeah,
And that's
so I would go to the supermarket then when it was really quiet. But the first time I went up to the deli counter, I was so excited when I was able to ask for 4 slices of meat.
yeah.
But a year on from that, now if I come near the deli counter, the lovely wee French gentleman's waving to me. So I have to buy 4 slices of ham, even if I don't eat them now, because he's always been so nice to me. So that, for me, I found that it's quite funny. Have you said any other French words or anything that you've got seriously wrong?
They're the ones that stand out
Yeah.
with me. It was actually quite a regular joke
Yeah.
with my friend and I.
Yeah.
She would just burst out laughing because she knew what was coming.
I think the one thing I was taught, I was very lucky in that I got an opportunity to volunteer in the local bricant here in Busak. And the French lady, Carol, that I worked with beside, she would teach me French phrases and stuff.
Okay.
And I had been trying to practice saying it was really hot because it was one of the heat waves and it was like 44 or whatever it was. And she had nearly had a heart attack because I had said, "Je suis chaud." And she was like, no. You can't say that because it doesn't just mean you're hot, it means you're hot.
Sexy.
So you're very sexy, so not to say that one, but yeah. So really your expectations and reality were okay. That was, they kind of matched.
Yeah.
You didn't disappear off as it, but it can be very difficult for people
Absolutely, yeah.
because they think it's all going to be
I
picnics
think,
and cheese and red wine and
yeah, I mean, if you've got the finances to support that, that's great.
and initially you couldn't work because of paperwork.
No.
How did you find
And I
that?
haven't had my SIRAT number until very recently. So I've been here for 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's been actually quite nice.
You not have to work and actually...
Because I can do what I actually like to do, and that's kind of DIY, improving the house, improving the outside exterior. I love to do that. So that was a bit of a dream of mine.
Yeah.
And to be able to have the freedom, the time to do that was...
have you been able to explore who you are? Because I find at our age, the kids are up and they've gone and suddenly we don't know who we are. And
I came over here with a definite agenda, I think meant subconsciously, but also consciously, to actually stand in my power. And I found that has massively helped me. The time, the space, the
Yeah.
freedom, because a lot of times you're on your own. The thoughts go
Yeah,
through
yeah,
your
yeah.
head. And when I was at home, I was always busy, busy, busy. So to have that, I feel quite thankful
Yeah,
of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Quite grateful for that. Yeah, definitely. And so I suppose coming to that, we'll talk about paperwork a wee bit, and bureaucracy, and we both love being here, but the paperwork can be a challenge. There's no
Yeah,
question
yeah,
of that.
yeah.
And we both find ourselves in a very similar position,
Yeah.
where it has literally, for us to get our residency cards, has taken us nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
So therefore we were forced to be here, and we couldn't travel back. Which has been difficult for both of us, I think, if we're honest about it. At times it's
True.
been very,
Yeah.
very...
I think I got to the stage where I was just burying it.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's something you can't do anything about until it happens.
yeah,
And you just bury it.
yeah,
But initially, yeah, it was tough.
yeah. There was it. And, there's the good sides and there's the bad sides. And one of the bad sides, I would say emotionally, what's been the hardest thing, leaving family and things behind? Or is it particular things that you've left behind? Or is it people? Is it...
Um, if I'm honest, it's like I was around a lot of people at
Yeah.
home. I would always crave space.
Mhm.
Um, and initially, the first 12 months, 18 months, I was actually more than happy to spend my time doing what I was doing and not having any interruptions. I loved that. And then you get to a stage you need to get out there and meet
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
Again, you need to connect, you need to find your way, because you can't survive on your own.
No.
Albeit obviously with my husband.
Yeah.
But my expectations were that it was an adventure for us.
Yeah.
And we couldn't afford to not have that opportunity. In the end,
Yeah.
there were a lot of doubts, uh, but things are quite different to how I expected.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's natural.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's, if you didn't... Yeah. So leading on from what you were saying there, we were kind of talking about, is there times that either you individually or you and your husband have regretted coming out here? I know Jim's got a business here and things like that. So there's a lot invested in here.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe people that are just retiring out here don't have the same investment. I'm not saying they have, but if you've got a business...
I think the most challenging thing is paperwork, but I hear a lot of French friends say the same.
Yeah.
It's all about paperwork and ticking the boxes. Sometimes you have to reapply for things. Things maybe are a little bit archaic, I think.
Yeah.
So nice in some ways, but frustrating in others, because you might have to apply for something simple 2 or 3 times,
Yeah.
maybe more.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So that can be frustrating.
Yeah.
In fairness.
And I think sometimes you feel disloyal saying things like that because we're in somebody else's country.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
as you say, it's not just us that feel the frustration.
That's why I say, like,
the French
even our French friends say the same.
and
Paperwork.
you grossly underestimate that when you come out. You do not believe that you're going to have to send the same documents in 5 times,
Yeah.
which can take up to a year. So that
Yeah.
can be... how have you found, like, doctors and accessing...
Got a fantastic doctor. I've only seen him twice, once as an appointment and once to just to say, here we are,
And how did you find
and
accessing that GP? How did you find the GP?
I think we were given the information through a friend.
Okay.
And we went, and so absolutely brilliant. And Jim has found that our doctor is amazing.
Right.
He's been absolutely terrific.
Because I found, and I didn't know about Doctolib, the app. that's
Oh, no, I
great for
never found.
accessing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so
we didn't
it's
go through
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Somebody had put me that on. I think that's one of the good things about, and we're coming on to community now, is about how very quickly you start to maybe meet somebody and you hear the same language and you think, you kind of say hello and then you start to, because I find it quite isolating. I was like you, I had a really busy job, worked 18 hours a
Yeah.
day, and then suddenly I was here and I think, we were renovating, but I
Yeah.
didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
I didn't have.
You have to pull your resources out.
Yeah. And so how did you, I know you were very busy the first year.
I think that really that helped me a massive amount, actually, to have that 12 months plus to just live my dream, really.
Yeah.
As well as battling with the emotional side of leaving family.
Yeah.
But you got stuck into physical work, and I absolutely loved that. What was the question?
So when was the point that you realised I maybe need a wee bit more now? I maybe need some other
Oh,
female
yeah,
company
after I would say 12 months, 18 months, I don't know, between that period, it was time. I knew, from here, you listen to here. And that at that time, it was like, right, okay, now, as much as I still need to do masses on the house, I'm ready to go out and meet people.
Yeah.
I want to meet people and connect with people and find groups. And
So how did you find that? How did you find
initially, it was Rivera, was it? The place in the Shard?
Riva? Yeah.
Yeah, Riva.
So at the time that was open, that was
That was
what we
open at the
would call
time.
an
And that
expats
was
cafe, if you
French speaking, but you'd meet Dutch, English, plus people that would come and chat and have a coffee. And so that was the first point of trying to connect with groups and stuff. Yeah.
And I think certainly for me, Riva was very important. I know it was for you too, because we met there.
Yeah, we did.
And for my case, my husband was going back to Scotland a lot.
Yeah.
And that I found that a place just even on a Saturday afternoon, I knew if I went down there, somebody would come in.
Yeah.
And you could connect.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe leads us on to Sunflowers, I think, because that's where Sunflowers was born from there, in the Sunflowers group.
Yeah.
And how did you find Sunflowers when you first came? Or
Great. Yeah, I can't remember the first time I came.
the initial meeting we had was 2 years ago, past in March.
Wow.
At Riva, and it was actually, as you know, set up for a lady who still comes, whose husband had sadly passed, and that's why it was started up to support her.
Yeah.
And we now we've expanded, maybe in 5 different places throughout the Indra community.
Yeah. Kudos to you.
Yeah. Well, but How important do you think those kind of groups are, and how they?
Oh, I think they're really important. Yeah. I mean, I see the girls, the ladies get together in that group particularly, and I think we get a lot out of it. The coming together, sharing information, or just having a laugh.
Yeah.
And having a chat, and I think it's really important. Yeah.
And it's
But that if you had something a little bit more serious to talk about, you could
reach out.
Yeah, you can reach out. It's there.
And I think, do you find other groups from that group, or have you gone and found them yourself?
Well, I'm only attached to a couple of groups, so
Okay.
Yeah, so I can't. That fulfills me. But not to say, actually,
Dragon's Pen.
Dragon's Pet. Actually, no, I'm telling a lie, aren't I? Because also, ladies got munch.
Yeah. We do have a ladies group that meets something every 6 weeks or 8
With a
weeks.
humorous title.
Yeah. The ladies got munch, yeah. But yeah, and I think that is a group of ladies as well.
That's a brilliant group.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, that's a fantastic group.
Do you think this living here has encouraged you to maybe reach out more than you maybe would back in the UK? Because there's no family here, do you feel you almost have to find your tribe again, or?
I'm kind of indifferent to that because I think I would. There were always stuff going on in the salon, you know,
Yeah.
things to do, places to go. We'd make day outs and things like
Yeah.
that.
So
So I suppose
you
it's
were
a
quite
similar
used to doing
type
it.
type
Yeah.
of thing. Um, and yeah, it's just different. It's a different selection of
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah,
Can we talk a wee bit about your art? And
my art.
yeah, I'm a big fan. You know, I'm a big fan of your art.
Thank you.
And how you've been able to develop that here?
Time. Although at the times that you think winter, you think that there's not a lot else to do, especially January, possibly February. You think that's when you should get stuck in, but unfortunately, I don't know whether it's anything to do with light sadness. What do they call it? Sad. It's like it's not happening. And the elevation, the
Yeah,
inspiration
yeah,
is I found that each year, especially in January, it's a dull month.
yeah. It
And if
almost
I
feels
was
hibernation. Yeah,
able to erase it, I would.
yeah. Because as it does feel
There's
like you're,
just
yeah.
not a lot going on.
No, there's not, and it's. But then again, I think that's why there's some of the groups are important that you
Yeah,
can still
because you
go.
want to get out, you want to garden or do something, and it's like it's too cold, too wet, too windy.
How did you find, and we found this very different here, the pub culture, the restaurant culture? How
Yeah,
did
it
you
is
find?
very different. For me personally, I was okay with that
Yeah,
because I'm. For me, it's not so much
yeah,
of an issue. For Jim, you know, I don't want to label the Irish, but it's like a social get
yeah, yeah,
together,
yeah,
isn't it? It's it's in his blood.
yeah.
So to not have bars locally or
And they're very different.
very different, yeah, it's completely
I mean,
different
I'm
stuff.
sure if you were in
And I
bigger
think that's
towns, it
been
would be,
hard
yeah,
for Jim.
yeah.
Yeah, that's been hard for Jim.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of the men struggle with that out here.
Absolutely, yeah.
Certainly, we were used to, you know, we would have gone out once a week or
Yeah,
twice a
it's that
week,
social, yeah,
and
it's that I would finish work at say 10 o'clock and maybe meet him
yeah,
like last half hour or
yeah,
hour,
yeah,
and that was fine with me. Or sometimes not, but the odd group night, music and that, yeah, you miss it,
yeah.
yeah,
Because
you
it's
miss
just
the group nights.
yeah, there's not that, and a lot of the
But I know
bars,
they're there.
yeah,
It's just
yeah. But a lot of the bars do
not
shut at 8 and
as
stuff. They do shut at 8, and
absolutely, yeah, it's completely different.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like a Sunday. Sunday's so different. It probably was like when we were wee, where it was more about family. But I know that was kind of diluted down the older we got.
Yeah.
But here it's very much guarded, isn't it? The Sunday's about family, no lawnmowers on.
Yeah,
You know,
it's respectful. Yeah, I haven't got a problem with that, and I
no,
think that's really again, it takes me back to the respect of, I suppose, shops closing on a
yeah.
Monday.
Oh yes, if
I
you come to
remember that.
France, don't expect to shop on a Monday because it's not.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. I haven't got a problem.
Yeah, it's almost like slightly stepping back in time to maybe an era when
Yeah,
we remember
definitely.
when we were
Yeah,
younger.
definitely.
Yeah, and that's
I must admit, the weeks that I was over, everything is so accessible. So it's like, oh,
yeah,
I actually quite enjoyed that, but probably not all the time. It was just for that duration. It was fantastic, like a recent
yeah,
vacation
yeah.
back
Because you've
back in
recently,
England.
you've
Yeah.
recently been back for 5 weeks, which is, I think, the thing for me as well. I love is the silence,
I love
especially
that
both our
too.
houses are
Yeah,
quite.
I
They're
love
not
that too.
remote, but they're
But
they're
there's only you know yourself when you've had enough silence and you need to go out there
yeah,
and get some you know
yeah,
some noise.
yeah. It's just brilliant. So, um, how would you kind of summarise the whole experience, or what would be your kind of tips, or
Well, I would say at this point I don't regret. With everything, there's good, there's bad, there's challenges, there's ups, there's downs, there's we don't know what's around the corner.
no,
But I would say I don't regret having the experience. What was the question?
Have you got like any kind of tips or sort of things you could advise to say, right, okay, be realistic with this, or
I think the one thing that stands out is be realistic. You know, administration, just be prepared.
patient? Patience.
Be patient and be persevering.
Yeah, and emails are not important out here. People
Just as well, because I never check mine.
That's very true. You never check. How do you see kind of the next 5 years? How do you see? What's your kind of vision,
Right. So
work-wise or anything?
so now it's kind of like the serious period,
Okay.
because now I've got my serious. I have to
So Senate
think, right, okay,
gives you the
now I've
legal
got
right
this.
to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I've got this, so I've got to seriously think about what I'm going to do. I have found that obviously with the language barrier,
Mhm.
but obviously that's down to me. So, you know, I'm thinking working in shops and stuff like that, which I would hate to do, but because you're in one place
Yeah.
for so many hours at once, I would hate to go back to that.
Yeah.
Which is why I love mobile hairdressing so much.
Yeah.
It was because I could move about. But restrictions.
Well, yeah.
How do I see the next
Yeah.
5
How do you
years?
see that?
So yeah, thinking more seriously about earning a living
Mhm.
and supporting myself. Um, so with art, I would like to do more.
Yeah. Develop that. So, yeah.
Yeah, develop a structure where I can do exhibitions, and I think quite often at this point, online is a good thing to get into.
Yeah.
It's not one of my strong points, but you know, you never say never, do you?
No, never.
Um, yeah, so I think, you know, that I make. I see you've got one.
These are called
Yeah.
JoJo's, which I wear all the time.
And bless you. And yeah, just different creative things. I don't like to be stuck to one thing. You know, I can wake up in the morning and maybe think, I, I want to do some, I don't know,
Paint,
plaster work.
paint a leather suite.
Yeah, paint a leather suite, for instance, as you
Joe
do.
has a penchant for
Yeah.
painting suite.
Yeah, and then another day it could be something, I can really get into something, and then a month later I could think of something completely different, but it is working with the hands and just having the ability to be able to do that, you know, and going with it and trying to make that resourceful.
Yeah. So it's having come out here, I suppose you would sort of say to people that you need to be prepared to make an effort. Try. Nobody's going to come and knock
Yeah,
on
I
your
think it depends where you are
Yeah.
in your life, whether you're retired, whether you come out here to earn lots of money. I don't. It depends on what
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah.
You know, maybe you work from home. You can sit in front of a computer and make thousands.
Yeah.
You know, brilliant. So I think that really depends on the individual.
Yeah. Yeah. No, fantastic. So anybody sitting watching this and listening to everything that you've talked about and you've expressed so really well, would you say go for it if people are thinking about?
So if I think there's so many questions that are attached to that, aren't they? And I
Yeah.
couldn't give one answer because everybody's so different, so unique. I think for me, it was a realistic move
Yeah.
in the way that I could see with clear eyes what it was actually going to be like,
Yeah.
and almost predicted, right, okay, in 3 years' time, we've got to get serious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's kind of worked in that order. Um, and so I think if you were never to have lived here before, or sorry, not lived here, had
Holidayed here or any
yeah,
experience?
I would certainly encourage somebody to
Come out.
come and see what it's
Yeah.
like, have a taste, have a feel, have see how you fit in or how you feel you could fit in.
Yeah. But the reality is also that you're going to be leaving close circles behind, and that bit's going to be hard.
Yeah, I know a few people that has struck a chord with,
Yeah.
certainly in the first year.
Well, we
It
both know
is an
people that have gone
adjustment.
back. Yeah.
I mean, not being 20 anymore, where
No.
you're just, everything's a new experience,
Yeah.
so you just go with the flow, which I do like to do, but you have a lot of memory,
Yeah.
and making new experiences, which is a
Yeah.
great thing to do, which I'm totally up for. You also have what you've made and left behind.
Yeah.
And I think the first year, certainly guilt
Yeah.
played a big part,
Yeah.
and you've got to be prepared for that,
Yeah.
unless you have no baggage as
Yeah.
such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think we would both say now, 3 years in, we've learned a lot, experienced a lot, but we've
Oh, we've
developed
changed. Yeah,
100%,
we've definitely changed.
and created a community around us. And I think,
Yeah.
I suppose what I would say to anybody wanting to come out is you need to have to be prepared to do that. And
I think,
in any, even small capacity or a
yeah,
bigger capacity.
I think people can sort of tell you, what to expect,
But until
but
you
it's
feel
like
it.
until you do
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
you can't know how you're going to, because I think we're all so individual. But there is a
Yeah.
similarity through speaking
Yes.
how our experiences has been.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Jo. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. And I know you're really nervous, but you've done so well.
I'm not saying
And
anything.
it's great that we're able to talk about these
Yeah,
experiences,
absolutely. Yeah.
the good
Yeah,
times,
if it
the funny
helps,
times.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And share that. And thank you very much.
You're so welcome.